Thank you, Ria. It's a beautiful Monday, like you said, here in the city of Abuja. And I hope you're sat with your coffee because we are ready to give you a good show today. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. It's a beautiful Monday morning. And I think this will be a great week for every one of us. TJ, let's hit the ground with what we have today. Welcome to FCT Brief. As Nigeria gradually moves towards the 2027 general elections, the spotlight once again turns to the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, and the critical question of reform. Calls are growing louder from political actors, civil society, and the electorate alike, urging a comprehensive review of the nation's electoral framework, one that truly reflects the aspirations of a maturing democracy. The conversation is no longer about whether reforms are necessary, but rather how deep and far-reaching they must be to restore confidence in the ballots. From the controversies that trail the 2023 polls to the recurring issues of logistics, technology glitches, and voter disenfranchisement, many Nigerians believe the time is ripe for a bold electoral overhaul. The demand for transparency, efficiency, and inclusivity remains high on the agenda, especially as a new political alignment takes shape ahead of 2027. Stakeholders are calling for clearer laws guiding electronic transmission of results, stronger enforcement of electoral offenses, and improved voter education to deepen democratic participation.
For the current INEC chairman, the task ahead is no small feat. Beyond managing elections, the commission faces the weighty responsibility of rebuilding trust in the system, strengthening institutional independence, adopting credible technologies, and engaging with all stakeholders will be central to redefining INEC's role in Nigeria's political evolution. The credibility of 2027, many say, will depend largely on how well the Commission addresses today's weaknesses. As debate intensifies on the need for reforms and innovation within Nigeria's electoral space, one thing remains clear: the journey to credible elections begins long before the first ballot is cast. Now on FCT Brief this morning, we'll be reviewing the growing calls for electoral reforms and examining the agenda before the INEC chairman as the nation sets its gaze on 2027. Ezenwa Nwagu is the Executive Director of Peering Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa, and he is live with us via Zoom. It's good to have you this morning, Mr. Ezenwa.
Good morning. Good to have you this morning.
Thank you. Well, the INEC chairman on what is ahead of us.
So when we say restoring, I think we should talk about improving. I heard you say rebuild trust, restore trust. We could improve trust. These are those lexicons of partisans. Election is a competitive enterprise, and so when engaging conversations around trust, you would have to be nuanced, because you have to be clear who you are listening to, who is talking, and all of that. So the predominant conversation is restore, rebuild trust, which gives the impression that 2023 election was probably not well conducted, and that is not true. That is actually something that you need to use facts to contend with. So the challenge will be clearly that there were things that went very well and there are things that didn't go well. The job of the commission, and not because we also like to build personality cults, this chairman will be working with 12 other national commissioners, and these national commissioners are not his subordinates. The same way he is appointed, the same process of his appointment, the same process of removal is the same process these national commissioners will have. There are 37 resident electoral commissioners. There are 37 administrative secretaries. There are 15,000 INEC staff. who all contributes to credible, fair, acceptable election. So his job is to manage, the ability to manage these complexities in terms of where perhaps election could go well or where election could go wrong within the spectrum of what you call the commission. So let's not build any personality cult. His ability to manage these people will determine how well he goes. So, but in terms of conduct of elections, I would say that there are no needs to reinvent the wheels. What needs to happen is that there are quiet and bold innovations that the Commission has put in place in the last 10 years. He should improve on those innovations and then look at where the weak links are. INEC has done an audit of the 2023 election, and the report is in a 507-page, document that is available on the website of INEC and in print. So people who have not invested in reading that audit, and it is from there that INEC also made up 140 recommendations that it is pushing with the National Assembly for, inclusion in the amendments that are ongoing. So my feel very quickly will be to say the INEC chairman has a responsibility to, first and foremost, take introspection, look at the internal governance mechanisms within INEC and see how much you can use motivation, you can use better welfare and working conditions to ensure that the intervention that we had in bringing academics into conduct of elections is gradually eased out to a point where those who will pay to conduct elections, the bureaucrats who are paid to conduct these elections, who were pushed out when the integrity deficit within INEC was very, very low. And now what we need to do is, how do we begin to strengthen that institution in a way that you do not need, the number of extraneous people that you bring into conduct of elections to be able to help the commission.
All right. Mr. Wagu, you rightly noted that that there was this reform research that was carried out after the 2023 elections, that the report is out there. Audit, I mean. But one other critical aspect is the technology, the BVAS, the IREV that had huge promises before the 2023 election, but failed the credibility test. Now, would you say that the new chairman should continue with exploring on the BVAS and the IREV, or should invent new technologies because technology is critical to the success of the 2027 election? If Nigerians do not have confidence in what happened in 2023, don't you think if you just move forward without addressing that?
Can you tell me what they don't have confidence in? Election is a process. Is it accreditation and voting? Is it results collation? What is it particularly? Because when you say Nigerians don't have confidence, it is a non-statistical standpoint. And I've been working very hard to resituate this conversation in a way that it can help us to identify the things that went well. When you say Nigerians, where did you get the percentage of the Nigerians who are saying, who don't have confidence in the electoral process? As of today, there is a voter registration process going on. Many Nigerians are going to register. It's a part of the electoral process. If they don't have confidence in the electoral process, why are they going to register?
Okay. Now,
well, Mr. Ezenwa, an issue that was raised during his screening, that's the new INEC chairman, was the issue of these officials conducting elections being compromised. Now, how do you say the INEC chairman should address this internal rot to also ensure and affirm the credibility of our elections?
it is a collective responsibility of the commission to identify bad eggs. And if you follow the 2023 elections, as a fallout of that 2023 elections, 3 national commissioners were suspended and ultimately were sacked. And I'm talking about Adamawa, Abia, and Sokoto states resident electoral commissioners were sanctioned first of all by suspension, and they were sacked. So what I am saying is that for today, we are using academics, vice chancellors who play roles as returning officers and other lecturers within the university system. The politicians have identified that no matter what you do, you are going to go to universities and get the people who will help you play the roles of returning officers. So what we need to do, and now they have started playing a role in who becomes vice chancellor. They have started playing a role in very boisterous role in who gets the position of the vice chancellor. And the reason for that is that these vice chancellors, they know whichever way will play big roles in conducting election. So we need to get back. Why did Professor Jega decide to bring in vice chancellor? It was because the internal processes were weak. What do you do when you have an intervention? You don't allow it to become a bureaucracy. So Professor Amupiton needs to begin to strengthen INEC internally by ensuring that the bureaucrats, the directors, the people who really are the foot soldiers of conducting election are not alienated from the conduct of election in a way that they begin to undermine the process. And I don't know if you're understanding the point that I'm making. But I just want to say that the challenges of election in a mature, and I like what you called it a maturing democracy. What you need to do is that there are things that you test out over time. We are people who are we like quick fixes. If you put out an innovation, there are challenges. Those challenges needs to be tested out through time. When you find out where the weaknesses are, then you strengthen them again for optimal results. But once we test a process and it looks like it has a challenge, we want to push it away, bring something new, and then quarrel about it, and then push it back again, and then go back to what we have left previously. And that's what the experience has been. I'm not saying the 2023 election went well, but there was no challenges. But I'm saying that it is all a learning curve. What are those things that didn't go well? How can we improve on them and make them better? But I am cautioning that the language of partisans must not be the dominant language. It must not be the dominant language. The language because people lose elections will mean that they will have a particular narrative that they will put out. And if we allow partisans to be the one to give us templates of conversation, restoring, rebuilding confidence, meaning that confidence was broken and you need to rebuild, but that's not true. There are people, the same people who are complaining about the elections in 2023, many of them are beneficiaries. Let me give you an example. Today, the National Assembly has the most diverse National Assembly since we came back to democracy in 1999. What does that mean? What it means is that you have opposition political parties winning elections. Some of the people who I saw in the National Assembly complaining about the 2023 election, it was INEC that conducted their elections, and they came from opposition political parties. Just backstop to where we were coming from, where you'll be going for elections, and almost the whole of the National Assembly was dominated by one party. Today, NNPP is in Kano, ABGA is in Anambra, Labour is in Abia. Most of this PDP is in most of the states, and they are opposition political parties. It was INEC that conducted those elections. If they were not free and fair, many of them will not be able to have the position to be able to. So we have to nuance our conversations in a way that it takes cognizance of what went well and then improve on what didn't go well.
Okay, all right, Mr. Ezenwa, we'll have to take a short break here, but we'll come back to you. Don't go anywhere. We still have more for you on the program. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Thank you for staying with us. Now we'll go right back into our conversation with Ezenwa Nwagu.
Let's go this way. The electoral reforms process is ongoing. What would you say are some of the most urgently needed reforms that the National Assembly should focus on? Because time definitely is not on our side.
Well, clearly, we have to remove the ambiguities in the 2022 Electoral Act that leaves quite a lot of discretion. For instance, what you have currently in terms of electronic, what you call electronic transmission of results, is simply upload. You're uploading still pictures into a viewing portal. It is not a collation portal. So the National Assembly will have to, initiate some kind of system that incorporates both uploads and collation. Because what the confusion for 2023 was what you call glitch. And that glitch actually was simply something that ordinarily has no consequence for the election. But the politicians, they played it in a way that gave the impression that you were supposed to get collated results real time, but that's not what it is. What you had was an upload. So that ambiguity needs to be cleared in terms of what then happens. And then the section 65 that gives INEC power to review results within 7 days also needs to be much more clear as to who should it be INEC, or there should be complaints, and what is the period that is required to discharge that review, so that a lot of the things that eventually end up in litigation can be cleared, just like they did with the Obingwa local government in Abia State. But much more, the review is intended to expand the democratic space. We are looking to see whether we can have more reserved seats for women, and that incidentally the Deputy Speaker and indeed the Speaker of the National Assembly are championing this very cause at this time. It will expand the democratic space. It will bring more vitality and more color to our democracy if we have more women in the legislature, which will resolve some of the very critical less than 10% of women you have in your legislature. That is not a balance. And I think that needs to be resolved in this current constitutional and electoral amendment. We need to begin to think about early voting. For you as journalists who work on election day, you may, and other, sensitive, critical election workers like civil society, medical doctors, and people of security agents who are deployed to work in elections can be given opportunity to have early voting like we have in many other places. Right. We need to be clear about what we want to do with our diasporans. Their contribution to our economy is massive in a way that we can't neglect. So we should be able to go into conversations about electronic or internet voting. But truth again is that your election cannot be better than your infrastructure. So we need to also shore up infrastructure in a way that it takes in people with disabilities. Right. For instance, the structures, the buildings that we use for elections are not disability friendly. Many people on wheelchairs may not be able to have access to our body. We need to be able to relate this in a way that the laws can be more inclusive and friendly.
Right.
But to just summarize that, laws are not all that you require for credible elections. You need attitudinal change. You need a political class that is also reform-minded, that is thinking of free, fair elections. 60-70% of the shenanigans that you have in our electoral process are contributed by the politicians. You can just take, for instance, the legal, most times when people see, court cases after elections, 70% of them are actually internal party issues. They have nothing to they have nothing to do with the real conduct of elections. So the attitude of our political class and their response to reforms is also critical, because you can't make all the reforms, but if you have a political class that is vested in undue and dubious advantage, your laws, their work will be to circumvent the laws and see how they can also compromise the systems that can bring them to account. So it's a whole gamut of conversation that needs to happen. And that's why I've been recommending a multi-stakeholder conversation that will have politicians in the room, media, civil society, the security agents. Let us put a mirror before each of these stakeholders and say, how much are you contributing to free, fair, credible elections? The electorates themselves, who make themselves available to sell their votes, and the Boko Sebe mentality that has crept into our politics. All of these conversations needs to come, and it is not just laws that deal with that. Reforms will have legal reforms, and then there will be attitudinal reforms also. All
right, Mr. Ezenwa, I like the fact that you mentioned that attitudinal reforms, because one thing that has characterized Nigeria's politics is this do-or-die mentality that we see among our political class. But since you have touched on that, what do you think about, this same-day voting? Because that is also a proposal that's on the table. Some say to save costs and to also reduce, this level of maybe a compromise that we see with the system. Do you agree with this?
To be honest with you, like I said earlier, your elections cannot be any better than your infrastructure. Sometimes I do, with all due respect, think that many people who call for same-day voting and election do not know Nigeria. Nigeria is not Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, Warrior, and all these places. There are backwater communities who are hard to reach, and their level of education, their level of understanding of even the current process that you are managing. Even those who talk about cost, you will have, if you, for instance, have these reserve seats and all of that, for those elections, you are going to have 5 ballot boxes. And for what you have currently now, you have about 3,000 ballot boxes that you have. So you have to produce additional ballot boxes. The voter education component that goes into the voters even understanding how to vote now, and the issues of ballots, the number of people who don't even know what to do with the ballots is still very, very spoiled votes is still very, very high. I think it should be an aspiration, but we need to gradually move to the point where we grow our infrastructure to be able to take care of our aspirations. I am happy to have election done in one day, but I am smart enough to know that in this Abuja where you live, just by Gwagwalada and Kujedia, there are places where you need to do 3-4 hours on a bike to be able to reach those places. And many of those places, development hasn't got there. But even if development doesn't get there, ballot boxes will get there. So we need to be nuanced and graduate our aspirations in a way that it takes cognizance of our condition, and then begin to work gradually to see how we meet our aspirations.
Well, Mr. Ezenwa Nwagu, thank you so much for your contributions on the program today. That's why we'll leave the conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being a part of our conversation. We'll now hand you over back to Lagos. Ria, it's over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Abuja. That was such a great conversation this morning. Thank you.